some time, several years, Israel and the United States were on the same page. Basically, both wanted to prevent Iran from developing a capability to produce a bomb, and it was called basically rollback. To roll back, if it develops capabilities, those capabilities should be dismantled, as it was in Libya. Libya had a program in 2003 as a result of fear of the Americans that invaded Iraq at that time. They gave up on the program, and the American-Israeli policy was trying to do the same vis-a-vis Iran. But the Americans changed their policy, and their policy became that Iran shouldn't have a bomb. It's very different from not having a bomb now, but allowing them to have the capability to produce a bomb in the future. And this deal between the P5+1, which is basically an American deal, with the Iranians, actually legitimizes a large nuclear infrastructure that allows Iran, even if it keeps the agreement after 10 years, to be within a very short time, maybe 3 months, 5 months, a year, what's a year in Persian history, to be close to the bomb, to be able to produce a bomb. A second repercussion, a second implication of the nuclear deal with Iran was it was limited only to the nuclear issue. Basically, the deal was on nuclear issues, and it was not linked to any foreign policy behavior of Iran. Actually, the Americans, and I quote, they allow Iran to play a responsible role in the Middle East. I'm not sure how this is being translated into Persian, but the perception in the region was, be it of friends or foes of the United States, that the Americans allow a carte blanche to the Iranians to continue whatever they do. The only thing that the Americans were concerned about was to put some curb on the Iranian nuclear ambitions. Of course, the Iranian, as a result of the deal, also benefit from a larger income of cash. There was erosion and cancellation of the sanction regime. And Iran nowadays has at its disposal much more money to do mischief in the Middle East. This is a major change in the balance of power in the Middle East. Now, though both dimensions, Iran allowing Iran to be close to a nuclear bomb, and the balance changes the balance of power, are of course adverse to Israeli national interests, not only our interests, but other countries as well in the region. And we may see that the Iranians will continue to do what they've been doing. The Iranians nowadays boast that they control 4 Arab capitals: Sana'a in Yemen, Baghdad in Iraq, Damascus in Syria, and Beirut in Lebanon. And they want more. And they don't hide their goal, for example, of evicting the American presence from the Gulf, and eventually Finlandizing the small countries of the Gulf, maybe trying to destroy Saudi Arabia, not by military conquest, because this is not their modus operandi, but by subversion. The eastern province, which is the richest province in oil, is largely populated by Shiites, and of course they are more susceptible to Iranian propaganda and Iranian subversion than the Sunni population of Saudi Arabia. So this is, and actually, as I mentioned before, they are not prevented from continuing to do so by the Americans, who didn't ask them to change anything in their foreign policy. The most problematic aspect, however, of the nuclear deal is that it will bring nuclear proliferation into the area. It really doesn't matter what people in Washington think. What really matters is what are the political elites in Riyadh, in Cairo, in Ankara thinking. Their perception are most important because those elites are will act on those perceptions. And their perception, as I mentioned before, Iran has a large nuclear infrastructure. It was sanctioned by the international community. This presents a threat to their national security. And in order to counter this type of threat, they want the same type of infrastructure. And the Saudis are very open about it. They said, we want the same. Exactly what the Iranians have, we want the same. And they want to be also close to nuclear bomb. Similar statements we see in Egypt. Similar statements we see in Ankara, in Turkey. Those countries are large countries, close to 80 million people, who have been traditionally, historically, contenders for leadership positions in the region. Egypt, Turkey, Iran have been the main competitors for hegemony in the Middle East. It is quite obvious that those countries will not stay behind. And I think to some extent the Americans understood it. And in order to prevent nuclear proliferation, they offered a nuclear umbrella to the Saudis, to the Gulf states. They tell them, don't worry, we are behind you, we'll help you, we'll prevent a worst case scenario of Iranian nuclear attack upon you. But as it is to be expected, this type of promises are not credible. The American administration, led by Obama, basically is seen as weak and as an unreliable ally. After all, the deal signaled to the American allies that the United States, under Obama, does not take into consideration the cardinal national interests of its friends in the region. It was done against the wishes of Saudi Arabia, of Israel, of Egypt. And therefore, this type of umbrella, or what we call extended deterrence, is not happening. The Americans invited the Gulf states and the Saudis to Washington for a conference, and the Saudis say, no, thank you. We'll be on our own. And this is a feeling. They feel abandoned by the United States. If this type of scenario will continue and will indeed see the fruition of the nuclear plans of the different countries, we'll see the emergence of a multipolar nuclear Middle East, which is a strategic nightmare. It is very dangerous because in our region, unfortunately, we have some lunatics who they might get close to the button. And trying to talk and to convince that Iran is going to moderate, but maybe some in Iran will moderate, but there are still a lot of revolutionary guards that are not going to moderate. And Wahhabis in Saudi Arabia are not the most moderate type of Arab. They are radical Islamists also. So this is basically wishful thinking, and we see the possibility of the emergence of several countries with nuclear arsenals and dangers of accidental or intended nuclear war.